So you brought up before that you're now working for LiveWebinar, the platform that we're on right now, actually, that we're using. So what are you doing now with them? So what is the? I know you said you're running the sales and for North America and things like this. So what are you doing now? Like what does that look like? What's the pitch for LiveWebinar?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, I got my start in technology, not my very beginning start, but one of my first, my start in SaaS, I should say, was back.
You mean Raindance?
Yeah. So back in 2000, I worked for a company called Raindance, which was one of the first unified communications companies ever. We were an early competitor to WebEx. We went public the same week as WebEx did. The very first sales pitch I ever did was with the North Face, which is a big clothing company. And I walked in and they were all on dial-up modems. So this was pre even broadband internet access for big companies. But we were selling audio, video, screen sharing types of conferencing solutions before it was a defined space. Now, unified communications and UCaaS, those are like multi-billion-dollar industries. Zoom is worth $120 billion today. And Raindance sold for 120 million. I mean, so it is possible to be too early to a space, but that's where my kind of first foray into SaaS was. It was with Raindance. And when I started in Envisiontel, we were essentially a reseller of Raindance technologies early on. That was kind of our business model, was just providing managed services around companies that were just getting started in the whole virtual event space. And so this is 18 years ago or 16 years ago that we were, doing stuff like that. So that's always been my background, is in this communication space. And I actually did not want to do it again. Like I was like, all right, I want to go get into another vertical or different industry. But, when I exited from the company that had acquired us, the whole story I was telling, that all happened like literally right before the pandemic hit. And so I was kind of enjoying my unemployment, just, working out, getting in shape, going skiing, going fishing. And then the pandemic and all the shutdowns happened. I was like, oh, I need to find a job. And that wasn't going very well because, everybody just froze hiring, about a year ago because of what was going on. And so I was just kind of on the sidelines. And it's funny, a guy I worked with at Raindance knew I was kind of sitting on the sidelines, and he had been approached by LiveWebinar via another guy, a mutual acquaintance that the two had. And they came to him and said, hey, can you help us launch our go-to-market strategy in the US? And he's like, I can't do it. He's like, I like what I'm doing. He's a vice president at a big telecom company. He makes a lot of money, but he's like, I know a guy that's actually built a company around these types of technologies. I worked with him in a previous lifetime, and he's an entrepreneur, so he knows how to bootstrap. You guys should talk to this guy. And so I got introduced. It's probably June of last year, maybe July. I think we signed our contract in July, but I got introduced to him in June. And they came to me and said, hey, can you help us go to market? And I was like, well, I'm not really interested in trying to bootstrap compete with Zoom. I mean, they're the Kleenex of the industry. Like people call them Zoom meetings now. It's like, let's go set up a Zoom. Even if it's a WebEx, they use the word Zoom to describe doing those kinds of meetings. And they're like, well, our strategy is not exactly head to head with Zoom. Even though it's a web conferencing platform, it's a unified communications platform. They are more of a Twilio competitor than a Zoom competitor, because we're more of a platform play in that the entire solution can be white labeled, and it can be broken down into smaller components so that other platforms can build in, whether it's chat or whether it's, audio, video, or screen sharing, they can build in the things that make sense for their application. But it allows them to do it without having to hire an entire different engineering team that has to have a different skill set than the guys that might be building their core product. It allows them to scale without having to make an additional investment in infrastructure and cloud resources. It can allow them to get to market quicker Like they can literally within a couple hours build in a chat widget or a screen sharing widget that would, take them months, if not years, to build if they were to go try to do it natively. So we're a platform that other companies can use to scale, go to market quicker, and build, capabilities that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to do without an incredible investment in resources and engineering and hardware and stuff like that. And what was cool about it was the timing, because everybody was going to work from home about a year ago, which means platforms that maybe weren't even thinking about needing these kinds of features suddenly need these kinds of features so that they can accommodate, these virtualized workforces that are out there. So even, platforms like an HR platform or a CRM system or a, sales engagement platform or a marketing automation system, these are all entry points, or all things that hook into platforms like Zoom or GoToMeeting, but those companies are missing out on their revenue. They're exposing their customers to third parties that can get in their ear and maybe encourage them to use different software applications for solving different problems. So it allows companies to build in features that create, a more sticky environment for their customers. They can increase revenue. They can keep up with the Joneses. So if they've got competitors that offer these kinds of features, they can introduce them quickly without having to go build them. So it's a familiar space that I'm used to, but the strategy around it's much different, and the conversations I get to have on a daily basis are a lot more sophisticated and a lot more exciting than just simply showing somebody, here's how you screen share, or here's how you do an audio video conference call, which, that's stuff I was doing 20 years ago. So it's been a very, very interesting way to leverage, 20 years of experience without reinventing the wheel and having to go compete head on with, the giant that is Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting. We're offering a different value proposition, which has been really exciting.
It's very cool. Now I know you're also not just working with LiveWebinar. Also, you're also doing Verity Ascent, right? So you're also running your own, not side hustle, I want to say, but you're also running your own consulting agency that helps not necessarily with just live webinar tools, but with other expo type things, right? So you're doing other types of IT services as part of that as well. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, currently I'm a contractor for LiveWebinar. Our plan is to raise money and address the market in a much more serious fashion. Right now we're maybe on a $4 million run rate, but most of our employees are over in Poland, which is where the company's based. So we're looking to do a capital raise, and at which point I would join the company full time here in the States. So right now, Verity Ascent is just my consulting company that I operate or kind of manage my contract with LiveWebinar through. But I also have a contract with Cloud Conventions, which is another SaaS platform, which happens to be a customer of LiveWebinar, but they're in the virtual trade show space. So they provide the platform that you would need to run like a 15,000, 20,000 attendee event, where you've got an exposition hall, you've got, keynote speeches, you've got breakout sessions and learning and, gamification going on across the platform. And then we're just dropped in there. LiveWebinar is like, a feature within that platform, but that's a perfect example of kind of how we fit with other solutions. I just happen to also know the CEO there, and she knew I was sitting on the sidelines and offered me the ability to help them with their sales and marketing efforts, because they are experiencing explosive growth right now because of the work from home and the pandemic and all that. So, all trade shows over the past year have gone from a physical presence to 100%, virtualized. And, as we move forward and the pandemic starts to wane, hopefully, that's not going away. It's going to be a hybrid world, and events will continue to be virtualized. So I'm kind of getting to double dip a little bit. I'm working two different contracts, but they complement each other. And so when I help, Cloud Conventions sell a new deal, LiveWebinar kind of goes with it. And I'm just, earning extra money on the side as I'm helping them, drive their market share.
So that being said, Matt, how do people get in contact with you if they wanted to find you to know more about LiveWebinar or about Verity Ascent or about the digital expos and things like that you're doing as well? How do they reach out to you?
Well, I obviously have a strong presence here on LinkedIn, or whatever, pretty much any social platform. But I can be reached at matt.lee@livewebinar.com or mlee@verityascent.com. Do you want my phone number? I don't know. I don't think anybody's gonna write this down. We once you put it up there,
Sure.
I can tag.
I'll put it up on the bottom
in the text. But yeah, I'm out there. Yeah. People can find me.
Sure. Well, I mean, some people like to be communicated in different ways, and sometimes, like I know this sounds crazy, but I've actually gotten to the point where I am giving out my phone number as the main point of communication, because text message seems to be the one thing that customers just seem to love doing. They'll respond back faster. They want, because I to be honest, I will too. I mean, is the truth, especially if they're an iMessage person. I mean, being an Apple fanboy, I mean, obviously if I got that blue bubble, chances of you getting a communication back because it's going to pop up on my Mac is a lot quicker. So I have been doing that the phone number pretty heavily. It's become probably the main way I've been communicating, and not necessarily from a phone call, but from that text message format. It seems to be working. So at least for me. Yeah,
I do a lot of texting. That's something I never thought would cross over into the business world, but it's shocking how much that's I seem to text with everybody these days. Most of the people that I kind of work closely with. But yeah, I'm definitely here on LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter. And, I can be found however people want to communicate with me. So I'm typically responsive, and I have a hard stop here in about 2 minutes, just so you know.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to close up right now. Just get that information out. So if anybody wanted it, they can reach out, and I'll put that information down below as well when I cut this together. So, Matt, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And again, I know we talked about this earlier, but I truly appreciate everything you've ever done for me in the past, and I'm so glad we still get to work together, even in different ways.
Yeah, no, it's been my pleasure. I think every stop along the way. I mean, even what we just got done talking about, two people I worked with 20 years ago were the first people to jump up and offer me opportunities when they found out I wasn't doing anything. So I have benefited from basically the same thing. I've been the recipient of people thinking highly of me and keeping me in mind for opportunities. And I've always tried to do the same thing. Like when I've had people work with me and for me that I think highly of, I'm probably their biggest mouthpiece when they need it. I'm like, it doesn't take much to get me to jump in and really sing somebody's praises if they've been a good hardworking person, and you know what I mean? So I'm only just paying it forward based on other people having done the same thing for me. So it's not like some unique quality I have or anything like that. It's me just learning from good people and passing that on. So,
well, thanks, Matt. And you get to your call. So I'll talk to you later. Thanks, Matt.
All right. I'll see you.
All right.